welcome to Reef Talk. I'm Scott Anderson, and as always, I'm here with Steve Rotter from RotterTube Reef. And today I thought we'd take a little time and talk about protein skimmers. Protein skimmers are probably the heart of your aquarium's filtration system. And Steve and I both have been doing some interesting stuff with protein skimmers lately. So I guess the most fun part to talk about to begin with is just an introduction as to how they work and why they work. So, Steve, you've been looking at buying a new protein skimmer. You want us to kind of give us an idea of what you were looking for and kind of give us a quick explanation on how a protein skimmer works?
Yeah. So when you say what I was looking for, what do you mean?
Well, so you're looking to buy a skimmer, right? And I know you were
Yep.
looking for something that was going to give you nice bang for the buck. So you wanted to make sure
hmm
that you were getting good foam. You were kind of looking into it. At the same time, you didn't want to spend every last dollar you had.
Right. Okay. So I'll start talking about what a protein skimmer is, and then you can jump in too.
Sounds good.
Um, so as Scott said, a protein skimmer. Now, first of all, I want to start by saying you don't need really a protein skimmer to have a successful reef tank, but seriously, you really should have one. Um, I'll never tell you guys, we'll never tell you guys, uh, you should do this or you shouldn't do that. But I would really say in this case, you should have a protein skimmer if you have a large aquarium. Um, so a protein skimmer, basically, I'll have pictures of it here on my channel, and I know Scott will as well. A protein skimmer is going to basically take all the bad stuff out of your water. So the fish will go to the bathroom. We're talking about the solids, okay? The
Yep.
fish will go to the bathroom, all the uneaten food. If you feed them nori and there's extra bits of nori in the tank, whatever goes through your filtration and goes into your sump, which is the little aquarium underneath your aquarium. That's a sump. The protein skimmer, most of them sit inside your sump, and it looks like, well, there's pictures of it here. A protein skimmer has a motor inside it, and it churns the water rapidly, creating thousands of bubbles. And basically how it works is, imagine like if you had, like little kids have, what are those bubbles in the bottle, and they blow them, and they float through the
Yeah.
air. So
I
imagine the
I kind of
bubble
like
flow.
the explanation of like if you were to take a hose and spray it in a bucket with your finger, it starts to foam up. That's kind of
You're
the
right.
I like that explanation.
Yeah, and that's how the motor creates those bubbles, and it's in a big cylindrical thing, as you saw in the photos, like a wine bottle or a cone. Now, as those bubbles churn, there's thousands of them, and like I said, the little kid with the play bubbles in the backyard. Imagine that bubble floating through the air. It's going to grab onto dust particles and anything floating in your backyard. Now, that one bubble will rise to the top, and when it pops, where does all that debris go? It attaches to the side of the cup from your protein skimmer. Now,
Yep.
imagine thousands and thousands of bubbles, and they're all popping, and all that scum is blasting against the collection cup. So long story short, bubbles capture that bad stuff. It gets churned through the top, lots of spray with that motor, and it gets captured into the collection cup, which easily twists off, and you dump it out, and you clean out your collection cup. So that's what a protein skimmer does. It gets rid of the bad stuff out of your water before it can contaminate or pollute your water, or that stuff turns into nitrates, which is really bad for your coral.
Right.
Um, so my point with that was the difference between the protein skimmer, and I've been asked, and Scott has too, well, why don't I just use like a sump sock? Why don't I just use like filter
Right.
media? And that's great. It polishes your water. Um, I'm going to let Scott talk about that. But what I wanted to add was that stuff is really good, but a lot of people are lazy and they don't clean that
Well,
media. So what happens is all that crud stays in the sponge or the sock,
yep.
which is sitting in your water. So your water is running through it. The protein skimmer, that stuff gets caught up in the collection cup at the top, so it doesn't stay in your aquarium. So you want to take it from there.
So the protein skimmer is also good at getting out those broken down organics. So it's a lot of that organic material that's not going to get caught in your sock, right? I mean, it's going to go right through because it's heavily broken down. Same with your same with your sponges. It's going to go through that. Now, protein skimmers are like one of the original pieces of filtration equipment for the saltwater aquarium. My understanding is they've been around for at least since the 60s. Now, I wasn't born at this time, so this is just kind of research I've done. But my understanding is that they were kind of first discovered in water filtration for like sewage plants and stuff. And then they were adapted over to the saltwater aquarium hobby. And the first protein skimmers used limewood air stones and big air pumps that would actually just put air directly into the water and create the foam that way. And at this time, they were all DIY. Nobody was out making them. So it was just hobbyists building their own things, experimenting, working with other hobbyists to build the best possible skimmer they could get. And I guess by the end of the 80s, people were actually getting really successful with these limewood air stones. But you can kind of guess that with DIY projects using limewood air stones, you're going to end up to run a big tank like mine, that you would need massive air pumps to run a limewood system, right? Plus, if you're using limewood air stones, they got to be changed out every couple months. And on small tanks, they're fantastic. And in fact, I'm testing a really small limewood air stone skimmer for my 5-gallon tank. Really cool. Can't tell you much about it now, but they're fantastic for small tanks, but they don't scale real well cost-wise for big tanks. And then about the late 80s, early 90s, we started getting two other competing technologies. You had the downdraft skimmers, which is very close to what my Aqua Sea skimmers like these days, which is where you just run lots of water volume through, and then basically it squirts the water directly into the skimmer and does that hose effect that I was talking about earlier, creates the bubbles that way. It takes a massive pump to run those. So from a power efficiency, they're not very efficient, but from a skimming efficiency point, they're really good because they process tremendous amounts of water. So the other one was the pinwheel style protein skimmers that is really popular today. So early on, it looked like the downdraft skimmers were probably going to win this because they were doing a much better job. And early on, the pinwheel style or Venturi effect style were pretty iffy, right? They would break and clog, and they had lots of issues early on. And then that technology got perfected. The downdrafts, like I said, were massive. They were power hungry, and they used a ton of energy. So those have kind of gone by the wayside, and everybody's using the Venturi style today, which is pretty cool. I got to say, though, I'm still stuck in the old days using the old downdraft. I use an Aqua Sea EV1000 to run my tank, and it works great. I love it, and I've never actually gotten to use one of the new Venturi style. I'm just really happy with the old style of skimmer. So for me, that's kind of where I'm at with them. It's kind of funny because I've got the two oldest skimmer technologies in my house, and I've never tested the new one. So when you were looking for a skimmer, Steve, you're doing something pretty cool because you're not just running one skimmer, you're looking at running two.
Right. So it's just a bunch of experimentation that I like to do on the channel for you guys, and show you what I've learned. Maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't. And it's not that I'm all over the place, you know, because I'm undecided. It's just me experimenting to give you guys ideas of what can work and what won't. So that's right. What I did was, it started out where I got tired of you washing the sump socks. I'll never go back to those again. They work great. I'd have about a dozen of them, and I would swap them out every 3 days. And once I would have 10 nasty ones in a bucket, I would turn them inside out, which is terrible because there'd be all this nasty dust everywhere because they were dried out. I put them in the washing machine on 2 spin cycles, water only, and it was just a waste of time, and it was just, no one likes cleaning those nasty things. So then I developed the rotter tube, which I'm still using. I'm going to put on my new sump system shortly. But then I thought, you know what, since I'm not using mechanical filtration, because I'm not going to want to clean it, because that's a big debate all over on these forums.
Yep.
Should I use foam blocks? Should I not use foam blocks? Are you guys using socks? Should I not use it? And people say, yes, use socks because it polishes the water and keeps everything clean. Other people say, in the other camp, don't use them because it prevents some of the uneaten food from getting back into the tank, and the corals like that. They can also, prevent some amphipods from getting back into your tank, and then people are literally picking things out of the sock to put back in the tank. I never do that. It's a waste of time, whatever. So I'm relying on my Protien skimmer, and that is it. There's no foam blocks, there's no socks, there's no mechanical filtration. So then I noticed that there's some things floating around in the water. Not bad, but the water isn't as crystal clear as what I would like. I'm just kind of looking for perfection.
Right.
My nitrates are also higher, as you guys know, so I'm going back to the sugar dosing, and it's doing really well. Nitrates this morning were down to 10 sugar
Woo-hoo!
dosing. Yeah. So thank you. So that's a little backstory for your question. So then I thought, you know what? A Protien skimmer that I have, it's the eShop's S200. I absolutely love it. It's incredibly quiet. You cannot even tell it's on. It's got the CJ motor in it from Italy. They're incredibly quiet, incredibly powerful. They're known for using those motors. When you get a Protien skimmer, you want to oversize it for your aquarium by like twice the amount. So if you've got a 75-gallon tank, you want to get a Protien skimmer that's rated for at least, say, 125 to 150, right? Just double it up, or close to doubling, especially if you've got a high bio load, which means you've got a lot of fish that are crapping a lot, and if you overfeed them. So with all those facts now in your head, a lot of you may know that, but the newbies may not. So what I decided to do is I've got a skimmer that's rated for my tank pretty well, but now I've got 2 sumps. If you put 2 Protien skimmers in one sump, the big thing on forums, the big debate is one's going to work harder than the other, leaving less stuff to skim out of the water. All right, I get that. But since I have a 20-gallon sump for one return and a second 20-gallon sump for the second return, I've got basically 40 gallons, but they're split. And this one is a Protien skimmer, but in the second one I've got nothing. So the water literally flows in and it's being taken right back up into the tank without being filtered or anything. So I thought, maybe I'll just put a second Protien skimmer in there to get those pollutants and all that crap out of that water, because sump number 1 is pretty clean. It's pretty nice. Sump number 2 is nasty, and it's just terrible. You put your hand in and you swish it around a little bit, and it looks really bad. So that stuff's going back into my tank, right? So you could have the best skimmer in the world in sump 1, but sump 2 is returning some of the bad stuff. So that's when I thought I'll go 2 Protien skimmers. Now, if I had one sump that was just large, I wouldn't do this probably. I'm only doing the 2 Protien skimmers because my sump is split, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you've got all that nasty stuff coming into one location, one oversized Protien skimmer is great. But since my sump is split, I love having the split sumps. It's great. I had a refugium in that second one. It's gone. So that Protien skimmer should arrive Monday, but I was just talking to Scott before we recorded. It's in the area. I did the tracking on it. So it might be today, I hope on Saturday. But I'll do a video of you guys, which I'm sure you've already seen because, pre-recorded, so whatever. So I'll let you guys know. I'm gonna show you guys. I'm thinking it's gonna pull out some really great stuff. Um, so what I wanted to just touch on that. What was I looking for? Well, Scott, you know what? You
Well,
continue. Talk about some brands and stuff.
well, what I
Some brands researched and stuff.
I'd like to stick with the dual protein skimmer for a few minutes
Oh yeah, we're going to.
because
Yeah,
I think this is something
big
that's
part of the show.
somewhat underrated right now.
I haven't
I
seen many videos on it. I did a search for it, and you are really the only one
I've done it,
who
and
had a
then
video with protein skimmer.
I've done it, and then there's another one that I've seen on there. I can't remember the guy's name right now, but he runs a relatively big tank with two of the Tunzi DOC skimmers, right? And to me, there's a lot to be said for two protein skimmers. First is its built-in redundancy, right? Because if you ever run a skimmer for a long time, you'll see that they get out of adjustment, right? So I noticed that when I ran two protein skimmers, that maybe one would be out of adjustment, but the other one was usually in adjustment, right? Or if one, I know it's not going to happen to me because I use the downdraft, but if one pump fails, like what you're doing, you're still going to have another skimmer skimming away. It's not like you're going to be going down, right? You're not going to be
Right?
a week or two out while you order a new pump for your protein skimmer. So
Yeah.
you, so you have that redundancy built in. The other thing that I found running two protein skimmers that was really cool is I could have two different setups, right? I could run one wet and it'd basically be kind of a primary skimmer, right?
That's a good
Getting all
idea.
the real
Yeah,
crap, and then I'd run the other one dry. And then so after I fed, that thing would just come on and pull the sludge out, right?
that's a
So
good idea. I never thought
so
about that. Yeah.
it was cool because I could set it up. I could play with the settings a lot more because I had two skimmers to play with. Now, like you said, you really want to oversize what your skimming is capable of. So when I was running two skimmers, I was doing it on my 90 gallon that I upgraded to my 210. Well, by the time I did the 210 upgrade, basically my two skimmers combined were about the right rating for my 210 only. But I
Hmm.
was really wanting a big, heavy bio load in that tank. So that's why I went to my really big Aqua Sea EV1000. So now I'm double my
The
total water. Well,
EV1000.
it's rated for 1,000 gallon tank. I mean, this is the
Holy
kind of
crap!
yeah. This
So
is
wait, so
the
now you just have that one, or do you have two still, or do you
no.
just have
I
that?
just have the one. It's for
Okay.
I mean, this thing is huge. I mean, seriously, the cup on it's like that.
Holy crap!
I mean, it's funny because I start playing with my old skimmers once in a while to do stuff with them, and it's like, oh shit, these are tiny. They're little guys.
That was a
But
lot of money, I'm sure. It sounds
well,
like it.
no, well, see, here's the thing. I bought it used, right?
Okay.
So brand new, this skimmer's like $650, which is pricey. You know, you think, oh, for a skimmer that does 1,000 gallons, that's pricey. Except you need a $300 pump to run that skimmer.
Yeah, yeah.
So the combo deal to make that thing runs like $900. Now, but I bought it used, and then I used the pump to run my whole system. So cost wise, it's pretty cost effective for me. But I could see that. But I
And
mean,
you need
that's
it. You
but
need it.
but that's kind of why the downdraft skimmers have gone the way of the dodo. I mean, there's still a lot of people who use them and swear by them, but there's only one company left that I know of that makes them, and that's Aqua Sea. There used to be a company, it was like ESST, something like that. They made these really incredible skimmers, but they were crazy expensive, and then you needed a really expensive pump to run them, and they used huge amounts of energy. I'd love to find a used one just to play with.
I'm sure you'll
But
find one somewhere. It'll
you know,
surface.
here's the thing. I've been looking on eBay, and they're still expensive. I think there's still like this. There's still like this cult following around these skimmers that
Yeah, I'm
people
sure.
still love them. They don't make them, so I think they still hold their value pretty well. But I'd love to get my hands on one. But the thing is I can see why everybody's moved to the new style, your Venturi setup with the pinwheel in it and all
Yeah,
that.
right.
They're much more power efficient. They do a great job skimming. I'm just kind of stuck in the old ways. The other thing I like about the downdraft skimmer is they work really well externally out of the sump.
Hmm.
So I don't have to run mine in the sump, which with my setup isn't practical to run a skimmer in the sump. Now
You know
they
what
make.
scares me about out of the sump stuff is, God forbid, any equipment gets a crack in it or there's a
Mm-hmm.
leak.
Yep.
That's what I don't like,
Yeah, I got a
being out
floor
of the
drain.
sump. Huh?
I got a floor drain.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah, no, all my stuff's in the basement. I got a floor drain.
Yeah,
But and I know they make external skimmers that use the Venturi effect. And if you've ever priced one, they get
yeah,
really pricey.
they
Actually,
are.
Darren, our friend at Northwest Marine, has one.
And one thing I wanted to add, where you're talking about the dual protein skimmer, add to your list. Um, these, what I do weekly is I'll take the collection cup off, dump out the stuff. It's gonna smell really bad. In fact,
It does.
my 4-year-old, I was just sitting on the couch watching the fish, and he's playing with stuff, Star Wars guys, and he's like, "Oh, I smell eggs. This smells pretty good." No, it was it was cleaning, and then
Oh,
the
that's
smell
bad.
from taking the cup off. Yeah, it smells like rotten sewer eggs. And I do that once a week. The more it smells, the
Yep.
better it's doing its job because it's getting all that nasty stuff out of the tank. So then I'll take a toothbrush and just under the sink, I'll just get the sludge out. It comes off really easy. There's like
Yeah.
no effort. And then anyway, adding to your list, if you have the 2 protein skimmers, you should clean, and I haven't done mine yet, and it's been in there for like 6 months, and it's really not garbaged up too much at all in the cone section. If you have 2 protein skimmers, you can let one run, take the other one out, and
Yep.
put it in like a 50-50 mix of white vinegar and water, and just let it run in the 5-gallon bucket. And that white vinegar will just clean that thing and clean the motor. You should clean those things, they say, I've heard every 3 months. You could do it every 6 months. It depends how messy they look. But I might do that once I get this other protein skimmer and it gets broken in. It should probably get broken in within a day. I'll take the eShop's S200 out and I will let it run in a bucket for 24 hours with white vinegar.
Yeah.
That'll take care of that. So that's another good reason for the 2. Yeah,
Now, I've never ran the Venturi style skimmer, like I've said, but my understanding is those motors and that pinwheel setup is really susceptible to like calcium buildup and stuff. So it's really important to clean that pump
yeah.
every few months with vinegar so that it's working effectively.
Right, that's true. I haven't seen much of any calcium buildup on mine, but again, I don't dose calcium like a lot of people do or have to like you.
Yep.
So my calcium stays around 450, which is the number you want to
Right.
target. 460, 470 if I do add a little bit of calcium, but um, for that reason, I don't have any calcium buildup anywhere on my nothing. The glass, the nowhere. So, but yeah, that's something to look out for too. If you see that calcium, the white encrusted buildup on your power heads or anything like that, chances are it's going to be
Right.
on those motors in your protein skimmer as well. So this is going to be a great experiment, and I'm pretty confident that it's going to work really well because the split sump.
Yeah.
Again, if it was in one sump, it wouldn't pull out as much crud, but being that the sump is split, yep, I've got one return going into one and one return going into the other, as you guys have seen in my previous videos. I want to have, that's just going to be great. I think it's going to be
It's
a
going to
really
be
good,
cool.
yeah. And these, as Scott said, these things can get expensive. You
Oh,
do
yeah.
get what you pay for. Buy them used. Read the reviews on Amazon. That's how I get most of my stuff now is off Amazon. I read the reviews. Now, I wanted another eShops skimmer. It's what I love. I'm not saying it's the best, but for me it is. I love these skimmers. They're incredibly quiet. Again, the CJ pumps from Italy, SICCE. I didn't want to spend, $350 average. I got mine on a sale for $230 last year. That you can't find them that cheap.
Right.
So this one that I found, I've never heard of the company. It's called Go Aquatics, and it handles a bio load up to 300 gallons. And I got the thing. It's going to come any day now for 168 bucks. That's insane. So I
Yeah.
was going to go with the Bubble Magus. I hate that name. It should be Bubble Magnus.
I agree.
That's what I'm calling them.
But
So anyway, the Bubble Magus ones Curve 5 and the Curve 7. The Curve 5 starts at like $188. That's when I was going to get. And I think they're rated up to 150-gallon aquarium, which is all I really needed. But then I thought, for $20 less, I can get a skimmer that does twice as much. So when I upgrade to a tank the size of Scott's in the future, I won't have to upgrade my Protien skimmers because both of them together will be able to handle a 400-gallon aquarium.
Yeah, and I mean it'll be interesting to see how that works. I'm intrigued to see what a lesser cost skimmer will do. I'm not going to call it cheap because $160 is not cheap.
Right,
I
right.
mean, you can go on eBay and you can get a $30 skimmer. I suspicious those aren't that good.
No, you're right. I mean, it's not like I'm saving $40 or $50. I mean, I'm totally not made of money. None of us really are. But if I was going to save $50, I'd go with a brand name that I know.
Right.
But this is like $200, and people who have bought this said the same thing. I didn't know about this company. I was blown away at the stuff that this is skimming out of the water. It's green and dark, nasty black stuff. 5 stars across the board. And another cool thing with this company that people have said, one guy's pump died, or motor died in the Protien skimmer because he got a snail or something caught in it, not because of failure. They just sent him one, no questions asked. Here's a new pump, here's a new motor, here you go. So and they also give you like extra O-rings and a couple. I'll do the unboxing, but I can't remember what it was. But they gave you extra parts with it in case you need it. Anyway, it looks like an eShops. It's the pinwheel design. It looks just like mine, except it's black and clear, not blue and clear. Right. Screw it. I'm saving $200, and it's rated for a 300-gallon aquarium. Now, so between that one and my eShops, I'll be set for a 425-gallon aquarium heavy bio load. So I'll be totally set.
Yeah. So, and then with Protien skimmers, there's tons of different designs out there. They've got the cone styles. They've got more like the rounded top style. They've got the just straight up and down neck designs. They've got bubble plates. I mean, they've got space saver ones where the pump goes under it instead of being external. So there are so many different skimmers to choose from that you can kind of find one that fits your application. You got a smaller pump, they make a skimmer, or sorry, a smaller sump, they've got a skimmer that's hopefully going to fit that.
Right.
They've got different designs because people have different theories on how these work. Now, one thing I saw that's really cool is Bulk Reef Supply is starting to do like a Mythbuster style program weekly where they're testing aquarium myths and facts, which is pretty cool. I hope they really dive into these Protien skimmers so we can find out, do these bubble plates actually make a difference? Are they really useful? I mean, does the cone neck make a difference, or am I sacrificing a lot of bubble chamber by going to the neck? Because I mean, if you look at the old like Reef Dynamics and Euro Reef stuff, which were crazy expensive skimmers, but they had a reputation as being some of the best in the world, they had more than just that kind of like rounded top feeding up to the neck, and their reputation was unbeatable. Unfortunately, they went out of business, which is really depressing, but at like $900 for a good skimmer, who's got that kind of cash?
Right, yeah.
So my suspicion is that when you figure out which design is the most effective, that you're going to find out the difference in skimming ability between kind of a mid-level skimmer. I mean, once you've got a decent pump with it and a similar design, that you're going to find out that the difference in skimming ability between a mid-level skimmer, let's say a basic Reef Octopus and like a Vertex or the Reef Dynamics one I was talking about, is going to be very similar.
Yeah.
Just like this, I wouldn't be surprised, since you're talking that this new skimmer you're buying, even though it's half the price of the eShops, since the design is so similar, I'm betting you're going to get very similar skimming abilities out of it.
That's what I'm thinking, and I'm pretty sure you're right. And I wanted to touch on something you mentioned before, because it was something that confused me a while ago when I was starting to look at Protien skimmers for the first time, getting into the hobby and stuff. You mentioned setting one for the wet skim and one for the dry skim, And basically what that is these skimmers can be set. You can adjust them for the amount of skimming you want to take out of the water. It's like a PVC pipe, and you just simply rotate it, and it allows basically how high the foam is going to rise in the collection cup. So you turn it one way, it's going to allow more flow in. The bubbles are going to bubble more higher up and overflow into that collection cup. You can fill it within like 10 seconds or 3 days, or less than 3 days,
Right.
depending on how you adjust that. Every tank is going to be different. So a wet skim is when you have it throttled open more and the bubbles rise higher and flow out into that collection cup. It's wetter. There's more liquid. It's called a wet skim. When you throttle it down, which is pretty much kind of how I have it, with a little wet, it's going to be more of a foamy lather, almost like lathering shampoo. And it's gonna bubble, and it looks like a latte, except you don't want to drink it. Well, maybe you can if
Don't
you're
drink
a
it.
creeper.
Don't drink it.
That's a dry skim, so that's gonna fill your collection cup a lot. It's gonna take longer to fill that, so you have to empty it out less. And then there's back and forth, as Scott said, where some people say wet skim is better than dry skim. If you do a wet skim, supposedly it allows your protein skimmer motor to last longer than a dry skim. So I really like that idea. I didn't think of that, about having the two protein skimmers, one skimming dry and one skimming wet. That's a great idea. I'm going to try that. And also, with the skimmer, there is a break-in period, which means it's going to constantly overflow. My first eShop skimmer, rated for 75 gallons, it took 3 weeks. It was just overflowing. I had it torqued all the way down, and it would just overflow, bubble up. So I just took the whole collection cup off, and I just let it flow out into the sump. And then after 3 weeks, like literally 1 hour, it just stopped. And I put the cup on, and then it was foaming nice and taking all kinds of things out of the water. You know what? People, they do things like they'll raise it up out of the water. The higher you raise it, during the break-in period, the bubbles will calm down by putting like plastic plates or shims underneath it. I never did that. I would just keep it in the water and let it do its thing till it breaks in. But some skimmers, they'll break in within a few hours, like my last one did.
You make a good point, though, that when your skimmer's going in the water, that you've got kind of this sweet spot of water level that the Venturi skimmers have to hit, right? So
Like
if you're
9 inches
usually
in
they'll
water,
say
9
between
inches roughly.
6 and 9 inches, right? So
Yeah.
you're gonna have to plan on that when you're buying your skimmer, because if your section you're putting your skimmer in is really deep, you're gonna have to have it raised up, right? Or your skimmer is
Yep.
not gonna work right. Conversely, if it's really shallow, you're gonna have to figure out how to get more water in that chamber, because it's not going to work right. So that's something you need to think about before you buy your skimmer, is what water level do you want to run in there, because you're going to have to adjust it. Now, there are other skimmers that can run externally where that water level doesn't affect anything.
Yep.
And that's also going to be part of your maintenance routine, right? So if your skimmer requires to be in a certain water level, don't put it in the chamber that has the return pump that constantly changes when the water starts to evaporate, or at least have a good auto top off with it, because otherwise your skimmer is going to adjust or is going to be adjusted by water evaporating. Keep it in a section where the water is stable.
That's a good point. Yep, definitely.
So that's an important thing I don't know if new hobbyists get right off. That is really important, which chamber you put it in and how you set it and the height you set it, just to keep it going.
That's right. And that little bit of water change, once you set it, you can forget it. But if you've got it someplace with water evaporation, that's a great point. Don't put it there, because it will affect it. Also, if you dose anything in your tank,
good point.
whatever, like Prazi Pro, if you got black spot on your fish, or
Yep.
you just dose anything in your aquarium, it's going to be in that water, and within seconds, depending what it is, that protein skimmer is going to go nuts, and it's going to start to bubble up over, because it's doing its job. It's skimming bad things out of the water. It wants the water and it just goes. It's great how the science of it works. So that's one reason why manufacturers, if you dose anything in your aquarium, they'll say turn off the protein skimmer. For one reason, so your skimmer doesn't go crazy. For two, if you're dosing something in your aquarium, you don't want it skimmed out and exported out of the water. You're putting it in the water for a reason.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind too. And when I have dosed Prezi Pro or whatever, and I didn't turn the skimmer off, skimmer went crazy.
Yeah.
It senses stuff. It's just amazing how it works. It's just how it works. It just does its job, and it does its job very well. In fact, on Bulk Reef Supply's website, they were showing. I think they used a Skims. They just picked one at random, and they just to show you, they put it in a sump just by itself, and they put like all this nasty water and sludge in it. I know you've seen it. Pretty much
Yep.
most people have. And then they just power on the skimmer, and within like minutes, instead of it being a brownish water, it was clear. And then all that brown water wound up in the collection cup that they just emptied out. It's a great invention. It's so awesome
It's
for a
fantastic.
hobby.
Yeah, it's in my opinion, it's like the best piece of filtration equipment you can have.
Yeah. And that's why I want to get two, because nothing sits in your tank. There's no foam blocks. Sure, that stuff gets trapped by the foam block, so it doesn't go in your main tank, but it's still sitting in your water, and all that stuff
Right.
is decomposing in your water. That's not good.
Right.
Protein skimmer gets it out. It gets it out of your water column. That's
It's
what you
done.
want.
Once it's out, it's not polluting your tank.
Exactly. That's why I'm going with two. I'm gonna now. Some people say overskimming is bad
No.
because you're stripping the water. It's bad for the corals.
No.
I don't agree with that. You can never over skim. You're removing the
Yeah.
bad stuff out of the water.
Yeah,
There's always going to be plenty of stuff. I mean, you've run two protein skimmers, and your corals are thriving. They look
I cannot believe that it'd be possible to skim to the point that you're going to cause ill health to your corals. Well, I guess maybe on like a non-photosynthetic tank, right? But beyond that,
I don't think so.
I mean, if
I
you're
don't.
doing non-photosynthetic and you're trying to feed it live food, stuff like that, a skimmer might not be a good idea. But for your average reef tank, skimmers are fantastic.
Right. Also, skimmers, what they do is they oxygenate the water, which is very good for the fish.
Yes.
Because with all those thousands of bubbles being created, you're oxygenating the water. Every time water, even like a waterfall, if you've got water from your return, as it will fall and splash into your sump, that's oxygenating the water. That's why you want to have one power head maybe pointed up at the surface of your water to
Yep.
cause turbulence. It oxygenates the water and breaks that up and causes that gas exchange for the nitrogen cycle to complete. But it oxygenates the water, so that's another good point. One other thing I wanted to bring up on the protein skimmer, where they go, oh yeah, so if you're carbon dosing of any kind,
Oh,
like
yes, very important point.
yeah, like if Scott, like he's using the biopellets, and I have biopellet reactor too. Carbon dosing is when you're feeding anaerobic bacteria so they grow and multiply, so they basically devour and remove the nitrates from your aquarium, break them down into a gas so they can escape, and that's why you smell that nasty smell. That's putting it in a simplified form. So to feed that anaerobic bacteria, that'll be another show. You do carbon dosing, and carbon dosing could be using biopellets in a biopellet reactor. They're like little tiny BB balls that the anaerobic bacteria feed on. You can dose sugar, table sugar, directly in the sump, which is what I do. It works awesome. I don't dose more than 1 teaspoon for every 60 gallons a day, so I'm dosing 2 teaspoons of sugar a day right in the sump. I don't mix it. I just put them in. It works great. Other people dose vodka. Works great because it's carbon.
Yep.
It's expensive, though, more expensive than sugar. White vinegar, I want to try white vinegar. People do like a shot glass of white vinegar for every 60 gallons, roughly, from what I've read. White vinegar right into the sump every day. So that's carbon dosing. So anyway, you need a protein skimmer because as those anaerobic bacteria take in those nitrates, they need to be exported, because if they're not, and that anaerobic bacteria dies, the nitrates are going to be released back into your tank. So
Right.
you need to export those bacteria and get them out of your tank, taking the nitrates with them. And that's how it works. So if you're going to do carbon dosing, you got to have a protein skimmer or do a lot of water changes. So I forgot to mention that too. I know
Well, no,
it's
I think
kind of
that's
off topic, but
what,
I wanted to bring that up.
but that's one of the big benefits to the protein skimmer is you can start doing some of these more advanced techniques like carbon dosing. And carbon dosing, while still, let's call it in its infancy, even though it's been around for like 10 years, um, is showing a lot of promise for keeping reef tanks with high bio loads and low nutrients, which is something we're all shooting for. And there's a bunch of different ways to do it. And that's just one of the benefits of the protein skimmer. Is it allows you to do some of this other stuff that in the past was more difficult.
Yeah, it's really easy to get high nitrates and phosphates if you um, overfeed your fish, and I
Right.
kind of do at times. I love to see them eat, and people feel sorry for them, so they give them more. Fish are always going to eat, but you don't
Right.
have to feed them every day even. So if you have a lot of fish, you're going to feed more because some fish won't get food, and some food will wind up in the cracks of rocks, and some food will wind up in places where fish don't get to it. It's going to break down, and it doesn't take a lot of food to break down to cause a problem. That's why they say if you have uneaten food, get it out of the tank, siphon it out, get it out with a turkey baster, suck it out of there, whatever. I don't. I just rely on the fish finding it and letting the current blow it around so the fish can find
Yep.
it. So that's going to contribute to higher nitrates in the tank, which is why you want to have the protein skimmer. It just skims all that garbage out of the water. Um, it's necessary. I would not run an aquarium without a protein skimmer unless I had like a handful of small fish or just like
Right.
clowns, whatever. But with tangs, forget it. I would not
Yeah.
have. They're messy.
Small nano tanks, you can get away with it.
Yeah.
I can say even on my 5 gallon tank, now that I got a skimmer on there, I
Oh
like it
yeah.
a lot better having that skimmer on there.
The water's got to be crystal clear, right?
Well, and here's the thing though, I've been crazy busy lately. I've been neglecting all my tanks. I hate doing it, but I just have
Yeah.
no time. And you probably notice I don't put a lot of videos out right now. Well, I don't have time to work on my tanks. I don't have time to do what I do. So having the skimmer on the 5 gallon tank helps a lot. I still don't want to show pictures of it because it doesn't look right, but I mean, I can't imagine what this thing would look like without the skimmer on it.
Right. And that's a good point too, because while having a really good skimmer that skims that water, it will lower the amount of water changes that you need to do. Bulk Reef Supply has said that a few times on their
Yep.
videos, and that's going to save you money because salt is
Oh,
expensive.
it
And
is.
even if you buy like cheaper, I'll say lower price salt, you're still buying salt. And if you're doing like water changes twice a week to battle nitrates or whatever, it's going to cost you money. Whereas if you have a good skimmer and good cleaning habits, you're going to have to do less frequent water changes. I still do changes once a week, but not that much, like 10 to 15 gallons. I've been doing 15 gallons a week on the 125 gallon. So that's something to look at too. And with the second protein skimmer, I'll probably go every other week. I'm sure. We'll see what happens.
We'll see,
Um,
especially now that you got your carbon dosing kicking in, your nitrates are lowering. I mean,
yep. And here's another thing too, another little tip that I'll do a video on, and I know Scott's done it too, I'm pretty sure. What you should do with your cleaning, and this is protein skimmers come into play as well, food and fish crap will settle on rocks. Take a turkey baster, fill it with water in your tank, and just blast your rocks, all your rock work. And I've even been blasting the surface of the sand to get that stuff in suspension, and it
yeah,
flows through your water column so it goes out into your overflow into your sump where it meets the protein skimmer and it gets pulled out of the water. Don't let that stuff sit and rot and decompose in your tank. It's bad. So once a week at least, or
well,
sometimes 2 or 3 times. It takes 2 minutes. After I feed them, I just blast with the turkey baster. You'll be amazed at all the dust or fish crap that comes off that rock, and your tank is going to look kind of cloudy, But that's fine. Within an hour, your protein skimmer is going to take care of
Well,
that.
you make a good point. One thing I like to do is when I clean my tank, I'll do everything but the protein skimmer if I can do it. There's not always time, but I'll do everything but the protein skimmer, right? So it's got that big foam head built up, so it's ready to skim. And then I'll get the skimmer a few hours or the next day later so that it's had time to pull all that crap out of the
Yeah.
water that I just produced. Because if you attack the protein skimmer, then you're gonna clean it out. You're gonna destroy that foam head, and it's gonna take a while for it to rebuild everything and really start running at full
Yep.
capacity. Then, so I like to let that protein skimmer do its thing and then clean the protein skimmer.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point too. Or if you're dosing anything, like bacteria to start your biopellet reactor or any meds, you want to turn that protein skimmer off. That's another good time to do that. But yeah, that's a good point. I'll do the same thing. I'll empty it out and I'll go over it with a toothbrush, but I'm not going to do the major cleaning on it for that reason. And I want it. You got to have your protein skimmer running after you mess up all that stuff and cause all
Right.
that stuff to go in the water column. You need it to get pulled out. So that's another reason I started doing that a lot more. That I thought, you know what, a second protein skimmer would really help because what was I doing? I was blowing all that stuff off the rocks and the sand, and it was in the water column, flowing into the second sump, getting returned right to the tank. I don't want that. So I want it to be met equally using a second protein skimmer. So again, if I had one sump, Scott's approach is the best. Get an oversized protein skimmer and nail it.
Well,
But I'm splitting the job between two protein skimmers because I like two sumps. Split it.
well, and combine it with the cost, right? So you've already invested in your eShop skimmer. If you wanted to double the capacity of your eShop skimmer, you'd have to spend like 500 or 600 bucks. I don't know what the actual
Right.
eShops cost, but I mean, and then that eShops that you have would just go on the shelf or you'd sell it or something, right? Where here you're spending a lot less money to accomplish the same thing.
Right.
Now, it's not necessarily the cheapest option if you're starting from scratch, but when you already have the skimmer, you might as well use it.
Yeah, and that's a good point because I think I've been thinking about that the last couple weeks. I had my other eShop skimmer that was rated up to a 120-gallon tank, 75 gallons with a heavy bio load. I sold it. I would have loved, and it was just sitting on the shelf. Now I wouldn't have to buy anything. I would
Yeah.
just put that in the second sump, and it kills me that I sold it because I loved that skimmer, but whatever. The good side of this is I got a bigger skimmer, so whenever I do upgrade to a larger tank, be it a 265, which is what I'm thinking, I don't have to get skimmers because I've got enough to cover 400 gallons.
Yeah.
So always buy larger because it's going to be better for your aquarium, especially if you upgrade in the future to a larger tank.
Yes. Within reason, of course.
Within reason, of course. Like, I don't, well, maybe, well, no. I was going to say maybe Scott, but no, he wouldn't do that.
No,
His, what was it, your SV1000? Is
Aqua
that
C EV1000. I probably shouldn't.
EV 1000.
I probably
you're not
shouldn't put
going to
that on
put
my
that on
5
your.
gallon tank.
That's what I was getting at. You've got like port behind your wall. You've got like a 75-gallon sump with that skimmer, refugium for the 5-gallon.
Might be a little overkill.
You never have to do water changes.
Well, it probably couldn't build a foam head because it's just there's 2 clownfish and a clown goby in there.
Yeah. Awesome. Let me show you my fish room. Here's the back room.
And here's my
That-
tank. Little 5 gallon.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
cool.
I can't think of anything else. This was a great show.
Oh,
I
this
know a
is
lot
good,
of people
yeah.
get a lot of use out of this one.
Yeah, this was a fun one too.
This was a good one, yeah.
I enjoyed it. So,
Me too. And if you guys want to be on this Reef Talk, which by the way is only on Mile High Reefers channel and Router Tube Reef,
Yep.
No longer on the Reef Talk channel. It's still up there, but you guys want to be on the show. We do shows as we think of ideas. We used to do them every Sunday, but as we addressed in the past, with scheduling, with us and guests, and people have to cancel at the last minute, it's really hard to maintain a weekly thing. So if you want to be on the
Right.
show, just drop us a line.
Yeah, and no guarantees we can get you on because the last few guests we've tried to get on, it just hasn't worked out. It's been crazy.
Right. So you can instant message Scott at his channel, Mile High Reefers, or me, Gratitude Reef, or you can send us an email, reeftalkshow@gmail.com. All right. And it'd be cool to just hang out with you guys. And you think of a topic, and the three of us will discuss it. You just need Skype. You've got to have Skype.
On a PC.
On
Or
a
Mac,
PC
but not
or
a phone.
Mac. It
On your
doesn't
phone or
work on a
tablet.
mobile phone. Skype doesn't work that way with mobile phones for recording. So you got to have Skype. That's all. PC or Mac with a Skype and a webcam. All right? Yeah. I can't think of anything else. This has been awesome.
No, it's fun. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I
Well,
guess we'll end it here. Be sure to check out Scott's channel, Mile High Reefers. Subscribe to his channel. Subscribe to mine. Do your research. Do what you feel is best. We're here to help. We're not here to tell you what to do, unless we know, that
yeah.
it's your best interest. We're never going to say you need a protein skimmer or you need to hang on the back only or do not use sump socks. We tell you what works for us and why.
Exactly.
It's up to you to make the decision.
There are no hard and fast. Well, there are some hard and fast rules, but
Right.
for the most part, they can all be bent or broken.
Right. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching.
Thanks again.